I would like to say a great, big, warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here tonight. Before I introduce our speaker tonight, I would like to thank you guys for coming to this plant-based eating speaker series event. I'm your host, Emma Levez-Laroque. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a registered holistic nutritionist and a certified plant-based chef, a Food for Life instructor with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which was founded by our speaker tonight. These monthly events are part of the Plant-Based Eating Support Network group, which is an online support-based group that provides ongoing nutrition and cooking support for people who are interested in learning more about the benefits and practicalities of a whole foods plant-based lifestyle. A plant-based lifestyle has so many benefits for our health, for the environment, and for the animals that we share the planet with. And there are so many incredible people working to raise awareness about these benefits. The speaker series is designed to bring the voices of a variety of plant-based experts to members of the support network group, and I'm pleased to be able to open these events to the public as well. We feature medical professionals, doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, naturopaths, as well as individuals who have inspiring change stories to share, and a real variety of plant-based chefs, which is pretty exciting. It's always a fun event at the beginning of the month. Now, on to our speaker for tonight. Dr. Neal Barnard has for decades been a force in the world of vegan research and plant-based nutrition. I became a fan of his early in my own vegan journey, which was started almost 25 years ago now. He is the founder and president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which is an incredible organization that advocates for preventative medicine, good nutrition, and higher ethical standards in research. I am incredibly proud to be a Food for Life instructor with the Physicians Committee. I've been following, as I mentioned, Dr. Barnard's work for many years, and it's hard to emphasize what an incredible contribution he has made to the understanding of the impact that food has on our health, as well as other areas. He has been out there on the ground fighting for this change of awareness long before it was trendy or popular, and I'm so grateful for his tireless efforts. Dr. Barnard is currently an adjunct professor of medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine, Washington, D.C. It is impossible to name all of his accolades and contributions, but I wanted to highlight a few. He has led numerous research studies investigating the effects of diet on diabetes, body weight, and chronic pain, including a groundbreaking study of dietary interventions in type 2 diabetes that paved the way for viewing type 2 diabetes as a potentially reversible condition for many patients. Dr. Barnard has authored more than 100 scientific publications and 20 books for medical and lay readers. Many of these I have shared with you guys in the support network group over the years and in my classes. In 2015, he was named a fellow of the American College of Cardiology. In 2016, he founded the Barnard Medical Center in Washington, D.C. as a model for making nutrition a routine part of all medical care. One of my favorite images from the Physicians Committee is a large group of doctors at a conference with Dr. Barnard in front, and they have a big banner that says prevention over pills. And I've used this in presentations to the city, to lots of different places, and people always, it really resonates with them. It's one of my favorite images, and I think it really sort of, it really stands for the heart of what this work is all about. So tonight, Dr. Barnard is going to be talking about his most recent book, Your Body in Balance. There will be time for questions after the presentation. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them into the chat box. And we will this is as I said to all of you, such an incredibly exciting opportunity for us to be able to chat with and interact with one of the real leaders in this movement. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Barnard.
Well, thank you, Emma. And thanks to all of you for joining us. It's a delight to be here with you. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is really taking the power of nutrition to a new level. And if I may, I'm going to share my screen. And if the little photo strip on the right-hand side of your screen is in the way, you can minimize it or drag it out of the way or something like that would be fine. Okay, the old way of thinking about food was that you'd eat something bad and that would give you a disease or you would gain some weight. And so if you stop eating bad things, you'll get healthier. And fair enough, but we can be substantially more detailed than that, and we can get a whole lot more power than that. And the way we do it is we think about how foods affect hormones. Now, if we can affect hormones, hormones in turn control every other part of your body. And you now have the ability to do many, many things that you never thought foods could ever accomplish before. So that's what I'd like to talk about tonight. So what are hormones? Hormones are made in one part of your body. They're chemicals. And for example, the thyroid gland at the base of your neck makes thyroid hormone that goes through the bloodstream to the cells of your body to give them energy. Or in a woman's body, the ovaries make estrogens, female sex hormones that go through the bloodstream to the uterus and to other parts of her body to get the body ready for pregnancy and to do other things. And in a man's body, the testes make testosterone, which will go in his bloodstream to his brain, I guess, and make him want to run for president. Just kidding. But the hormones go from one part of the body to another, and they give it directions, tell it what to do. And they're really like a letter in the mail. Start one place, carry information to another place. So how could problems arise? There are really two kinds of what I'm going to call hormone haywire. And the first kind of hormone haywire is that you don't get enough letters in the mail. The organs aren't making enough hormones. Nothing's happening. The other way that they can go wrong is just the opposite. You get too many letters in the mail, too many hormones coursing through your blood, and that can create all kinds of mischief. Okay, so let me start with one hormone, and that's insulin. It's made in your pancreas, which is the little organ right behind your belly button. And insulin is made in the pancreas. It goes through the bloodstream to the muscle cells, to the liver cells. And its job is to get sugar from the bloodstream into your cells where it can give them energy. Okay, so let me show you how this works. Back in 2003, the National Institutes of Health gave my research team a grant to test a plant-based diet versus a conventional diet for people who had type 2 diabetes. Now, the conventional diet was reduce your calories, keep carbohydrate fairly steady, don't eat bad fats. You know what I'm talking about, fairly standard recommendations for diabetes. Now, the plant-based diet was no animal products. In other words, vegan, no meat, no dairy, no eggs, nothing. We also kept oils pretty low. And the third thing was we used low glycemic index foods. And what that means is, say, white bread. If you eat white bread, it will make your blood sugar rise pretty quickly, and that's high glycemic index. Rye bread or pumpernickel bread are gentler on your blood sugar. We call them lower glycemic index. So the intervention was vegan, no animal products, really low in oils, and low glycemic index, or really healthy foods. That was it. And to cut to the chase, what we were measuring was A1C. Hemoglobin A1C is a measure of your blood sugar control. For people with diabetes, we want it below 7. So our individuals, they all had diabetes. They'd had diabetes on average for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. The red line is the people on the conventional diet. They did well. They dropped about 0.4 absolute percentage points, pretty good. The blue line is the people on the vegan diet. And as you can see, their blood sugars dropped. It dropped 3 times more than on the conventional diet. And that changed the way we thought about diabetes. We now started to realize that a diet could be like a drug. It was powerful. Let me show you how powerful. This is Vance. Vance was one of our first research participants. Vance was here in Washington, D.C. He was a policeman. Then he worked in a bank. And he told us what diabetes meant to him. He said, I know all about diabetes. It means you're going to lose the leg. It means you're going to go blind. Vance knew what he was talking about because he had it all up and down his family tree. Vance's father was dead at age 30, and Vance himself was 31 at the time he was diagnosed with diabetes. So we saw him when he was in his late 30s, and he was randomly assigned in a study to the vegan diet. And he surprised me. He said, this diet is really easy. I said, Vance, people think a vegan is hard. You know, you've got to acquire a taste for folk music, wear tie-dyed clothes. He said, no. The old-fashioned diabetes diets that he'd been on in the past said, cut calories to try to lose weight. That meant you would be hungry all the time. Secondly, they would make you count carb grams. So if you had a piece of bread, you had to write it down on a piece of paper. You had to rigidly count everything. And he said, you know, you don't make me do any of that. A vegan diet just means I don't eat meat chili. I have bean chili. I don't have ground beef sauce on my spaghetti. I have a marinara sauce. He said, really simple. What could be easier than that? Over a year, he lost 60 pounds. His doctor stopped his diabetes medications. He said, I don't think you need these anymore. And his hemoglobin A1C dropped from 9.5, which is frankly terrible, to 5.3, which is exactly normal. I want to tell you something. When I was in medical school, I was taught that diabetes is a one-way street. Once you got diabetes, you'll always have diabetes. But here was a lab slip from Vance showing that his hemoglobin A1C on no medications at all was squarely in the healthy range. It was not diabetes. It was not pre-diabetes. He didn't have diabetes anymore for all intents and purposes. And we started to realize that diabetes can be viewed as a condition that is reversible. Oh, by the way, when I was asking if I could share his experience with you, he said, make sure you tell everybody that my erectile dysfunction went away too. Okay, more on that later. All right, let me show you the cause of type 2 diabetes. If you are doing something else, if you're checking your messages or something, come into the talk right now. I want to show you the cause of type 2 diabetes. This is really important because everybody gets this wrong. I'm going to show you what the cause of it is and how we can reverse it. This purple blob you see in the middle of your screen, that's a cell in your body. We call it a muscle cell. And muscle cells are fueled by glucose, sugar molecules, natural sugar that comes from the food you eat. That's the fuel. And the problem is they can't get into the cell. The glucose molecules are in your blood. They're outside the cell. They need to get in if they're going to do any good, but they can't because the cell membrane keeps them out. What do? I need a key. And the key is called insulin. It comes from the pancreas, goes through the blood, arrives at the surface of the cell, and there it attaches to the surface of the cell, just like a key in a lock. And when the insulin arrives at the cell surface, it signals cellular channels to open up. Key in the lock opens the door, and in through the door come the glucose molecules. Very good. So insulin, it's a hormone, but it's the key that opens the cell up. What could ever go wrong? What could go wrong is this. My dinner looks like that. My lunch looks like that. My breakfast looks like pieces of that. And I'm eating a lot of fatty stuff. Is there fat in pork and beef and fish? The answer is lots of it. Chinook salmon, 52% fat. So what happens? My cell starts to accumulate fat. The fat builds up inside the cell. And doctors call it intramyocellular lipid. All that means is fat inside muscle cells. Here's the point. When fat builds up inside the cell, the key does not work anymore. It's like somebody putting chewing gum in your front door lock. Nothing wrong with your key, but you're not going to get in the door until you clean all that out. So if you have type 2 diabetes, your cells are filled with fat. You can be rail thin, but fats that you have eaten have gone from your digestive tract into your blood, into the cells, and they're stopping insulin from working. We call that insulin resistance. Same thing is happening in your liver. The liver cells are filled with fat, and that insulin key can't work. So if the insulin key can't get the sugar into the cell, it builds up in the blood. The doctor says, your blood sugar is really high. You've got diabetes. Okay, what do? The diet that we use is vegan. So how much animal fat is in a vegan diet? None. And if I keep the oils really low, there's not much of any kind of fat. And so the fat starts to dissipate. So here's where we are at first. The insulin key isn't working at all. That's insulin resistance. The glucose molecules are not getting through. But now I'm on my low-fat vegan diet. The fat starts to go away. And as the fat dissipates, the insulin key can work again. And the insulin resistance is gone or going away, and insulin sensitivity has taken its place, and now you don't have diabetes anymore, or it's improved dramatically. Okay, all right, let's shift gears. We talked about the insulin hormone. Let's talk about sex hormones. In men, testosterone. In women, estrogens. This is Catherine. Catherine was an aerospace engineer, and she was shipped off to Iraq in 2003. And when you're working in a war zone and you're eating what the government gives you, you don't gain any weight. But eventually her tour of duty came to an end, and the government shipped her back to the United States, and she got off the plane, and her family vowed to make up for all the foods that she was missing in Iraq. And what did she miss? She missed cheese. She loved cheese, macaroni and cheese snacks and all kinds of cheese stuff. In fact, a friend of hers gave her an entire case of mac and cheese dinners, 48 boxes that she ate for 48 days straight. Well, she gained weight. She also developed a condition called endometriosis. This is where cells that are lining the uterus, the endometrium, have escaped, and now they're implanting all around the abdominal cavity. They attach to your intestinal tract. They attach to the ovary. They attach to the fallopian tubes. They strangle them off, and they cause pain, and they cause infertility. That was her situation. She hurt. Her doctor gave her painkillers. Her doctor gave her hormonal medications. Nothing was helping. Finally, her doctor said, I know you're in pain. We can do a hysterectomy. Just take everything out. Your pain's going to go away. Well, she was 27, and she and her husband hadn't started a family, and she was not so sure she wanted a hysterectomy. But her doctor said, well, with the extent of your endometriosis, you're almost certainly infertile anyway. All you've got to lose is your pain. Okay, so she agreed to the procedure, but they couldn't schedule it for another 6 weeks or so. So in the interim, she went and saw a nutrition expert who said, we've heard about this diet, vegan diet, keep oils really low, let's give it a try. And what happened to her was remarkable. She started to feel better. She started to lose weight. Her pain started to diminish. And as the weeks went by, she felt better and better and better. But the pain was not entirely gone. There was some residual pain left. So she decided, what have I got to lose? I'll just have the operation. She went to the operating room. They anesthetized her. And an hour later, she woke up, and her doctor was there. The doctor said, Catherine, I need to tell you something. I didn't take out your uterus. I did not do the hysterectomy. I opened you up. I looked inside with a laparoscope. Your endometriosis is practically gone. And the only reason you had some pain left was that you had some scarring where it used to be. You had some adhesions that I freed up, and I don't think you're going to have any pain anymore, but I didn't take out your uterus. And her mother was in the recovery room with her, and her mother said, well, she went vegan, that's why she's better. And the doctor said, no way, no way. Foods don't cause endometriosis. And a diet change isn't going to make it go away. There's only one explanation for this. This has got to be a miracle. Well, miracle or not, she felt great. She never lost her uterus. She actually wasn't infertile at all. She has 3 kids of her own. And she became a Food for Life instructor to teach other women how to take back their health. Okay, so hormones, estrogens, what about that? Well, estrogens are female sex hormones that, as I mentioned earlier, get the body ready for pregnancy. What are they doing? They are causing that endometrial layer, the layer in the inside of the uterus, to thicken up every single month. they have the same effect on endometrial cells that have escaped and are now implanting all around the outside of the uterus, the endometriosis. In other words, every single month, wave after wave of estrogen causes those cells to grow, to swell up, to bleed, to scar off, and to cause tremendous pain. It's one of the most common gynecologic complaints that women have. What the doctor who treated her did not realize is that estrogen is under your control to a very substantial degree. What? I can change how much estrogen is in my blood? That's right. I'm not talking about swallowing a pill. What I'm talking about is fatty foods cause estrogen levels to rise. Animal fat, vegetable oils, fryer grease. The more fat you have in your diet, the higher your estrogen level goes. Fiber, plant roughage, vegetables, beans, fruits cause estrogen levels to fall. And there's one other thing. Catherine loved cheese, didn't she? Cheese comes from milk. Milk comes from a cow. Cows on dairy farms are impregnated every year to keep their milk production maximal. When they're pregnant, their normal low level of estrogen production surges, and they are milked well into their pregnancy. What I'm saying is, every glass of milk you ever drank, every scoop of ice cream you ever had, every cup of yogurt you ever ate came from a cow that was making estrogens. And as she's making estrogens, it goes down the milking tubes into the milking pail. It ends up in the dairy products, and a man or a woman, a boy or a girl who consumes dairy products is consuming estrogens. They add to your own. And Catherine stopped eating a lot of fat. She started eating a lot of fiber. She wasn't consuming any dairy products at all, and her endometriosis went away. Many other women are doing the same thing, and not just for endometriosis, they're doing it for normal menstrual cramps. They're doing it to reduce breast cancer risk. Men are doing the same thing to reduce prostate cancer risk. Okay, let me shift gears a little bit. At the end of a woman's reproductive years is menopause. And so many women during their menopausal years find that hot flashes are driving them crazy. Hot flashes mean you have a sudden surge of heat in the chest and your face, and you're breaking out into a sweat and you're fanning yourself. And after a minute or two, it'll go away, but then come the chills. And then after a couple of hours, it can all start again. It can happen at night. You throw the covers off because you're burning up. And a little bit later, you're feeling drenched with sweat and you get cold and you never get a good night's sleep. So what are hot flashes? The ovarian activity slows to a stop. This is menopause. You're not releasing eggs anymore. When that happens, your normal estradiol and progesterone diminish, and a hormone that tries to make them increase, it's called FSH, that increases, and doctors can test these things in your blood. But the result, hot flashes, vaginal changes, and your mood can kind of not be your own for a while. You'll find yourself being moody, maybe depressed, and sometimes your cognition feels sort of fuzzy and out of sorts. Okay, hot flashes are vasodilation. Blood vessels in your skin are suddenly opening up and the heat comes out and you can feel it. It's just as if somebody took a radiator knob and just opened it up. Okay, so what's the role of food in this hormonal condition? Well, a researcher named Margaret Locke from McGill University went to Japan, and she studied about 1,200 women, and she discovered there was no Japanese word for hot flashes. And hot flashes were really, really, really uncommon. And other researchers looked in China, they looked in rural Mexico, and they found a pattern. In parts of the world where people don't consume dairy products very much, or at all, and where the dietary staples are plant-based, rice, vegetables, not much meat, maybe none at all in certain religious traditions, there's just not much in the way of hot flashes. And then as diets westernize, the rice diminishes as burgers and chicken wings and cheesecake come in, hot flashes become more common. Breast cancer doubles, diabetes goes way up, heart disease increases, and waistlines expand. Westernization of the diet somehow brings hot flashes in. So what's this about? Well, Anne told me about this. She said, you know, hot flashes are pretty bad for anybody. But if you're wearing a gun belt and a bulletproof vest, they can really kill you. She was a cop. She was on the beat in Portland, and she had hot flashes all the time. But she heard about what you're going to know about, which is that soy products might be part of the solution. One of the plant-based foods that's very, very popular in Japan is soy-derived tofu, soy milk, tempeh, miso, others. Well, very popular in Japan, and started having a soy protein serving every morning. And she noticed her symptoms went way, way, way down. To see if this was real, she stopped it. Symptoms came back. Okay, she started it again and stayed with it. So what's this about? Soy products contain genistein and certain other isoflavones that look sort of like a match for estradiol, but unlike estradiol, your normal sex hormone, genistein is quite safe, doesn't increase cancer risk like estradiol does, and seems to have an anti-hot flash effect. If you happen to have hot flashes and they're driving you crazy, try this. 3 steps, no animal products at all. For the next 3 months, just do this as an experiment. No animal products whatsoever. We're going to be vegan. Number 2, keep oils really, really low. Get a nonstick pan, cook without adding oils, have salad dressings that are oil-free. And for now, for the next 3 months, skip the peanut butter and guacamole and other fatty foods. We're going to keep oils really low. And third, add a half a cup of cooked soybeans every day. Get an Instant Pot, cook up a big batch on Sunday, and apportion it out in half-cup servings. So vegan, oils really minimal, and a half cup of cooked soybeans every day. Let me know what happens. So many women discover that their hot flashes are gone or dramatically reduced. See what happens to you. But now, if you go on the internet, you'll hear people say, well, soy products, wait a minute. Don't they cause breast cancer? Because those isoflavones, they're phytoestrogens, they must cause cancer. Well, here's what here's what caused this discussion. Back in the 1930s, researchers discovered soy isoflavones, genistein, daidzein, and others. And they do attach to breast cells or they attach to estrogen receptors. And so that convinced people that they must promote cancer growth. But as researchers looked at it, the opposite was true. In 2004, there was a meta-analysis of 8 studies in Asians and Asian Americans, and they found that a high soy intake reduced the risk of breast cancer by about 29%. And women who had breast cancer in the past, if they ate more soy products, their risk of dying of their cancer was cut by about 25 or 30%. Let me be clear. Soy is linked in a way to breast cancer. It reduces it, it prevents it, it cuts the risk by about 30% that you'll ever get breast cancer. If you had it in the past, it will reduce the risk of dying by about 25, 30%. Soy is optional, you don't have to have it, but it's tasty, it's versatile. If a person switches from a meat burger to a soybean burger, if they switch from dairy milk, which has actual estrogens in it from a cow, to soy milk, which has isoflavones in it, the risk of cancer goes way, way down, and their hot flashes might improve too. Okay, so where are we? The old idea was, I eat a bad food, I get a disease. The new idea is I'm going to control my hormones, whether it's insulin, whether it's estrogens, whether it's thyroid hormone, or many, many others. There's a lot more information for you in Your Body in Balance, but I gained power over so many things that I thought I was kind of stuck with. So this is my book, Your Body in Balance. Let me encourage you to have a look at it. And I want to say a big, big, big thank you to Lindsay S. Nixon, who many of you know. She's the happy herbivore. And Lindsay made wonderful recipes. They're all quick and easy to make, simple ingredients, familiar ingredients, but all low fat, all completely vegan, all super delicious. Let me stop at that point. I'm going to unshare my screen, but I want to first just say a big thank you to all of you for being part of this program. Thank you to Emma. I have a request, which is hopefully you found some of this new and interesting. Don't keep it to yourself. So many people are struggling with hormone-related issues. whether it's prediabetes and diabetes, whether it's thyroid issues, menstrual pain, endometriosis, infertility, hormone-related cancers, hot flashes, all of these things have their roots in diets that are really not so hot. And we can change that and we can feel dramatically better. And if we make those changes, a lot of other great things happen. Our cholesterol falls, our waistline comes down, our blood pressure gets better, our doctor starts thinking, I don't know what you're doing, but you ought to keep it up. In the course of all this, your environmentalist friends start praising you because they say that's exactly the diet that's great for the earth. And then you discover that you are now the animal's best friend. Here in the United States, Americans have a bad judgment to eat 1 million animals every hour. And once you step away from that, you realize you're not just doing the healthiest thing, you're doing the kindest thing as well. So let's make some noise. Let's share this around with other people. Let's see if we can change the world. Emma, back to you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing, and I just you're such an incredible presenter. It's I just am overwhelmed at how awesome it is to have you here. So if you guys want to share your, if you do turn your cameras on, this will feel a bit more like a conversation. If you feel you know, sort of inclined to do so, please do at this point. We have a few questions. I have a bunch of questions, but I'm gonna let these guys ask their questions first for sure. So let's start with okay, yeah, you guys put your questions in the side. I'm gonna start with a couple of questions that came in ahead of time. So I had one question about wondering if you could talk about the connection. I'm not sure if this is a short question or not, but the connection between food and allergies and acid reflux.
Okay, well, those are two different questions. But with acid reflux, your stomach makes stomach acid to help you break down foods. And sometimes it works overtime. Normally you eat some food, the food passes through and your acid production stops. But if it keeps going longer and longer and longer and longer, you think, is the food staying in my stomach all that time? We don't know exactly why. But for some reason, when people follow exactly the diet that I described, get away from the animal products, keep oils low, for a great many people, their acid reflux goes away. I'm talking about GERD. And you don't have to believe this, you just have to give it a try. Like you don't have to believe in medications, you just take them and you see how it works. So if you're currently following a diet that has animal products in them, or that has a lot of greasy stuff in it, take, probably 4 or 5 weeks would be more than enough time. Scrupulously avoid all animal products, keep oils low, and see if you don't get better.
Thank you. The next one is, many of our members are concerned about the health of the planet as well as their own health, and are working locally to raise awareness about this. And we know that this is something that PCRM is also concerned about and working on. Know about your recent climate summit. And one of our members asked, what would you recommend is the most efficient way of turning a community away from the Western diet in the short window of opportunity that we have to work with?
Oh, well, thank you for asking about that. You know, there are so many different ways of doing it. The way that we do it is when people have a health concern, that for many people is their first motivation. And so what we encourage people is to do a short-term test, taking a week or so of just trying out vegan foods, and then take about 3 weeks and really do it all vegan all the time, and just see if things don't get better. So we do this in our clinic. We encourage other clinics to do the same. And in the classes that you offer, people can test exactly that kind of thing. So letting people know about the health effects, I think, is a good thing. Now, young folks, 16-year-old guy doesn't have a prostate, so far as he knows. He'll learn about that later. So he's not too concerned that dairy is going to cause prostate cancer for him. For younger people, they're very often environmentalists and quite often animal advocates. So making sure that they know about that side of it is really a good thing too. Recently, many people are looking at transitional foods like the Impossible Burger or Beyond Burgers and that kind of thing. Those are sort of a vegan methadone. In other words, if you were a meat addict, the Impossible Burger is sort of your transition away from it. And I think they're really good for that. However, as time goes on, you'll discover that you want to not stay at that phase too long. You'll find simpler, healthier foods to go for. But if you're in a family where there's some people who are still in the pre-contemplation phase of their vegan journey, you might try some of these foods. There are vegan fake bacons, vegan milk and meat, vegan yogurts, all kinds of products to try. And I think it's, yes, they are processed and so forth. They're not as necessarily as pure as organic broccoli, but they are great for peeling a person away from the feeling that they've got to have meat. And as they start to discover that those things taste pretty good, their journey will continue from there.
Thank you. I love that analogy of the vegan methadone. I'm going to use that. What is the effect of soy on the thyroid? Do you recommend eating soy if there's a thyroid issue?
Yeah, I think it's okay. People have studied this, and it does not really seem to be a problem. The one thing I would say, though, your thyroid gland right here at the base of your neck makes, as I mentioned, thyroid hormone, which gives you energy. You need iodine in order for it to work. And if people are low in iodine, at that point, sometimes their diet can cause what little bits of iodine that are in their diet to not make their way into the thyroid. The answer to that is make sure you got plenty of iodine. What are the sources? The one everyone knows about is iodized salt. You don't need a lot of salt. A quarter of a teaspoon, third of a teaspoon gets you a long ways there. My favorite source is the most neglected thing in an American diet, which is seaweed. So nori or wakame or arame, rich in really, really healthy iodine, or you can take an iodine tablet. But it's assuming that you have adequate iodine in your diet, having soy shouldn't be a problem at all.
Okay, great. And another thyroid question, someone with rising thyroid, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, wondering what foods could help him.
Okay, we already covered half of it, which is make sure you have adequate iodine. By the way, don't overdo it on iodine. The amount you need is about 150 micrograms a day. That's a good amount. If you go way over that, it's a problem. If you're way under that, it's a problem. You want to be in the zone. The second thing, though, researchers at the Adventist Health Study 2 noticed that diet patterns related to thyroid health. Specifically, vegans were the least likely to get hypothyroid, meaning low thyroid. And they were also the least likely to get hyperthyroid, meaning too high. The vegans tend to do best. The people who were most likely to be hypothyroid, low in thyroid, also called Hashimoto's disease, surprisingly enough, it was the lacto-ovo vegetarians. They're not eating meat. They're making up for it with cheese. They're getting a lot of dairy proteins, which apparently the body recognizes as foreign proteins. The body, we believe, makes antibodies to knock out those proteins. And in turn, those antibodies attack the thyroid. Get the dairy out, the thyroid might improve. For hyperthyroidism, the people who do the worst are actually omnivores. So don't fire your endocrinologist, but let your endocrinologist know that you're going to try a healthy diet and see what happens. And get the animal products out of your diet completely and see if your thyroid doesn't improve.
One of the books I want to mention at this point of yours that's wonderful is The Cheese Trap. For people who are struggling to break the addiction to dairy. That's a really great book, and with wonderful recipes by Drina Burton too, who we had in the speaker series a few months ago. So
fantastic!
Just a shout out for that amazing book. Okay, so next one. Thank you, Dr. Barnard. 2 questions. What are the best sources of healthy fats when eating plant-based? I'll go for that. I'll ask you the other one.
Sure. You don't need to add fat at all, actually. If you looked at some broccoli, you wouldn't think it has any fat in it, but if you send it to a laboratory, they would tell you it actually does. Maybe 7 or 8% of its calories are healthy fats. Alpha-linolenic acid, linoleic acid. These are the fats your body actually needs, and they are there in green vegetables especially, but in other foods too. So when you have these foods, you get those fats. If you have a lot of other competing fats, animal fat in your diet or fryer grease or a lot of grease that you're adding, that competes with those healthy fats. So the answer isn't really to add a lot of good fat. It's mostly to have normal, modest amounts and to avoid all the competing fat. Now, if you want to, a lot of people do, they'll have chia seeds or flax seeds. You grind them up and that liberates the healthy omega-3s that are in them. Sprinkle some on your salad, perfectly fine.
Okay, great. And the second question was, what role does diet play in chronic joint pain? Great question.
I mentioned earlier that some foods can trigger an antibody reaction where your body, your white blood cells, make antibodies against, say, dairy proteins or egg proteins or other things that you've eaten, and those antibodies in turn attack the thyroid. Antibodies like that can also attack your joints. And if you could look into the joint of a person who's got rheumatoid arthritis, it does not look normal. There's a lining around the joint cavity called the synovial lining that's normally there. But in rheumatoid arthritis, it looks angry, it's inflamed. And if you could take a powerful microscope, you would discover that your own body tissues that line the joints are being attacked by antibodies. So what we have been exploring, and many other researchers too, is getting those antigens out of the diet. What I mean is the proteins that are in animal products, stop eating them, and to see if the body can calm down. Now, years ago, I wrote a book called Foods That Fight Pain. And in the arthritis chapter, you'll see that we used vegan diets for rheumatoid arthritis. We go a step further. If a vegan diet doesn't knock out the pain, after 4 or 5 weeks, we look at a list of plant foods that might also bother some people. It might be nuts, it might be tomatoes or citrus fruits. And there's an organized way that you can figure out if one or more of them are triggers for you.
Thank you very much. That's a great answer. Are there any types of soy that are better to use than others more often?
Great question. The short answer is they're all fine. The longer answer is some people will say fermented soy might be better. They're thinking about miso or tempeh, which have been fermented, and it gives them a special kind of flavor and a different texture. However, in research studies, the non-fermented ones like soy milk or tofu work pretty well too with regard to disease prevention. So I don't play favorites there. Now, I would suspect that soybeans are healthier the more they look like a bean. So if you have whole soybeans, that might be the best. Edamame, that's still a whole soybean. Tempeh, I can still see the little soybeans in there. By the time it gets ground up and turned into soy milk, it's still mostly soy, but it's starting to get more processed. And if you grind it up and turn it into a strip of bacon, you might have added more soy, more salt or other things, and it's a little less recognizable. It's still miles ahead of pork bacon or turkey bacon or anything like that. So even at its most processed, soy is better than whatever it's replacing. But there's something to be said for having it as a soybean.
Thank you. We have a couple of
Sure.
I have a question, but I can't believe I have the honor of listening to you live. So
Thank you.
appreciation.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Sorry. And it's also a comment on how healthy you look at the age of 67.
Hey, don't rub it in.
What will a vegan diet do for a type 1 diabetic?
Oh, my favorite question. Let me tell you a little story. I was giving a lecture at George Washington University Medical School. It's my medical school. And one of the medical students had type 1 diabetes. Type 1 is the type of diabetes where it's not caused by fat building up in your cells, causing insulin resistance. It's different. The cells that make insulin are gone. They've been destroyed by this antibody reaction. This is what she had. A medical student was there. She said, I got type 1 diabetes, but she wanted to go vegan. She had a high cholesterol level. She thought it would help. She had a heart for animals too. She went vegan and she told her endocrinologist what she had done. And her endocrinologist said, wait a minute, you're going vegan. You've got type 1 diabetes. There's all kinds of carbs in a vegan diet. You're probably eating rice and sweet potatoes. Your blood sugar will be sky high. He tried to talk her out of it. she stuck with it. And what she found is not only did her cholesterol drop dramatically as she hoped, but her type 1 diabetes improved too. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have type 1 diabetes, you'll always need to inject insulin because your body's not making it anymore. But the amount of insulin that she needed went down dramatically. And she joined a Mayo Clinic surgeon who also has type 1 diabetes in publishing an article on the treatment of type 1 diabetes with a low-fat vegan diet. Here's what we believe, is that when you have type 1 diabetes, a vegan diet won't make the disease go away, but it will dramatically reduce your need for insulin. And the most important thing is that it will make the complications less likely. Diabetes doesn't kill you usually with a high blood sugar or low blood sugar. What it's mostly doing is attacking your blood vessels, the blood vessels to the eyes, to the kidneys, to your lower legs, to your heart. You don't want a drop of cholesterol in your diet. You don't want a drop of animal fat in your diet. You want to baby your arteries. And that's what a vegan diet will do. So if you have type 1 diabetes, run, do not walk to a low-fat, healthy vegan diet, exactly the same one as we use for type 2. Do be in touch with your doctor because your insulin requirements are likely to drop. You want to watch as that happens. When it happens, you can say hallelujah, because if you need a whole lot less medicine, that gives you a whole lot better control.
Okay, great. I have another question about, someone's asking about your, I think maybe what she's trying to say is, I know you have done quite a bit of advocacy work around plant-based in hospitals and schools, and just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that maybe.
Yes. In 2017, the American Medical Association passed a resolution that we brought to the AMA. And it was that hospitals should serve healthy foods. I mean, imagine that. And what that means is instead of a person having the heart attack yesterday and waking up today to a breakfast of bacon and eggs, they would have vegan foods available so that the patient can learn the tastes that will help the patient to heal. So the AMA said that hospitals should serve plant-based food in addition to whatever else they're serving, and that hospitals should make one other step, and that is processed meats cause cancer. That's bacon, sausage, ham, hot dogs. As sure as we are that tobacco causes lung cancer, processed meats cause colorectal cancer. They also contribute to breast cancer and many other forms of the disease. So the AMA said, get all that out, stop serving it. Hospitals are now in a bit of turmoil because they want happy nurses and doctors who have access to bacon and all the other high octane foods. So, but they're all sort of in this process of figuring out how to implement that. If anybody participating in today's program has a connection with the hospital, you work at a hospital, by all means talk to your food service and say that you are voting for them to adopt these AMA standards, and I'd be more than happy to share the text of the AMA resolution with you.
Thank you. I can answer this question. Is there a website that sells your book?
Well, thank you. You'll find it on Amazon, and you'll find it on all the online booksellers. But let me say this, that if the pandemic ever loosens its grip and there's a local bookstore near you and you're able to go in and give them your business, I'm sure they'd really appreciate that too. But anyway, thank you for asking about your body and balance.
Do you work with any people who contribute to restorative farming practices?
Not in particular, but for every person who becomes vegan, that's a big chunk of turf that no longer has to be dedicated to raising feed crops for chickens and cows and pigs. When I go home to North Dakota, where I was raised, the fields are gorgeous. It's all identical corn crops and identical soybean crops, all GMO. No human is going to eat any of it. It's all to feed chickens and pigs and cows. And you need massive acreage because animals eat a lot and you get relatively little meat as a result of it. And so to the extent that people stop eating animal products, there will be, you can grow all the plants that people need on a fraction of the amount of turf that you need to raise feed grains for animals.
Okay, if anybody else has questions, this is your opportunity. Put them in the comments. Otherwise, I'm gonna carry on with a few that I have. One of the things that we often get questions about when we're have plant-based doctors or well, particularly doctors on is people ask how do I talk to my doctor if they're not supportive of the change in diet like this? So what would your answer to that be? What would you recommend?
It's an unfortunate situation because if you had a doctor who knew that pneumonia could be treated by an antibiotic, but told you that he or she didn't believe in it, or wasn't trained in it and didn't tell you about it, and you got sick or sicker, no one would tolerate that. But if a person has type 2 diabetes, if they have a high cholesterol level, if they have a weight they want to get rid of, the very best thing you can do is to begin a completely healthy plant-based diet. And if a doctor doesn't offer you that or fights you, that doctor is incompetent. And the only reason that we tolerate that is that doctors are judged not by what they know, but by how much they adhere to the standard of care in their community, which means if every doctor is incompetent, you can get away with it. But I have to say, as a physician, that is just not tolerable anymore. Our work on type 2 diabetes that I shared with you now was published by the American Diabetes Association in 2006. That's 15 years ago. And if doctors don't know about it, it's really a mistake. So anyway, all right, that's my impatience speaking. But if you are there and you're in a room with your doctor and you want to finally talk to your doctor, say, can I get wise about this? First of all, keep in mind, you don't need your doctor to counsel you about nutrition. You need your doctor to be a good diagnostician. You need your doctor to help you understand your lab values. You know probably more about your diet than they will, and a good vegan dietitian or food for life instructor can help you there. But it's good if doctors know about it, and we have a couple of websites that will help them. One is called Nutrition CME, Nutrition Continuing Medical Education, nutritioncme.org. You might just mention that to your doctor. We have another resource called the Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. It's a free download. It's got about 90 chapters on every condition and the role of nutrition in it. Doctors can access these. They can get up to speed very, very easily. And if you say to your doctor, I'm going to be asking for your help with these things, the doctor can learn about it. We also have a conference every summer. It's called the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. It's virtual. So this year, doctors all around the world will be joining us July 15th through 17th. And hopefully your doctor will join us.
That's a really, really powerful thing. And in fact, I would encourage anybody to tell their doctors about this. We had, you guys all know, in Pell River, we have a couple of plant-based doctors, one who I work with her patients, Danielle Marentet. And that is exactly how she sort of really started to embrace this. And a lot of you are her patients, or some of you are her patients, and so you know the story. But I think that's a really, really valuable thing, is to share this information with your doctor as well.
One other thing. A lot of doctors will say, well, I'll bet it's good for you, but no one could ever adhere to it. It's got to be too strict and too punishing and whatever. And it's a good thing to let doctors know, I like this way of eating, actually, because that's a common experience. People do go through a bit of a change. It's like when you're a smoker and you quit smoking. You're glad you're a non-smoker. You're glad that you've made that, and you don't want to go back. When a person is broken up with pork chops, they're really glad to have made that change, and to let the doctors know that it's actually relatively easy and it's a wonderful change. That's good for them to hear too.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. I'm going to have to probably just have a few more minutes. So this is a really good one. Other than eliminating dairy and eating plant-based, is there any advice for mild asthma and allergies?
Well, you've already touched on the most important one, is getting away from dairy. And this is kind of a crushing one, because there are oftentimes 8 or 9-year-old children who've got really bad asthma, and sometimes it lands them in the hospital. It can even be fatal. and their parents are afraid to take away the dairy because they've heard the kids need dairy. Kids don't need dairy products. They do need calcium, but there are really good sources of calcium that are totally non-dairy. So if you have asthma or a child has asthma, take the dairy out for sure. In many cases, that's all you need. They will improve. In some cases, they won't need their inhaler anymore. In some cases, the asthma just flat out gone. But other parts of the diet or the environment can affect them too. They might be affected by pet dander or other parts of the diet. For some reason that I personally don't understand, when people get away from dairy, sometimes those other allergens bother them less. Like a person, the kid who couldn't have a dog because the dog dander was bothersome. When you take the dairy out, they stop reacting so much to the other allergens. So don't fire your doctor again. Don't throw your inhaler away, but do make a diet change and see if you get better.
Can I realize most of the benefits of a plant-based diet while still eating my backyard chicken eggs? Or are eggs just as bad as milk and beef?
Well, they're different. Eggs, milk and beef, milk and the milk products that are made from it, cheese and so forth, are the biggest source of bad fat, saturated fat. Meat's number 2. Eggs have some of it, but where eggs really come to the fore is with cholesterol. They are the cholesterol champions. And the reason is that an egg, when it's laid, has everything in it to make a chicken. But as the embryo is developing, the chick doesn't call out for room service. All of the cholesterol and so forth that you need to make feathers and a beak and little feet. It's all in that egg when it's laid. So it's this monstrous amount of cholesterol. When you eat it, the cholesterol will add to yours, and that increases the risk of heart problems and other issues. You've probably been seeing the reports out that eggs are linked to higher mortality, meaning you die sooner if you eat a lot of eggs. So I would encourage people to not have them.
Okay, thank you. How do you respond to someone who asks if a vegan diet can reverse cancer?
Cancer's a challenge in any case. What I would strongly encourage you to do is to work with your doctor, including a second or third opinion if you need it, to make sure you got the best diagnosis and the best treatment plan possible. In addition to that, you're going to have breakfast. And so you want your breakfast to help your immune defenses be as strong as they can, to help your body to be as strong as you can, and that's a low-fat, completely healthy, plant-based diet. And as I mentioned with soy, there are a lot of well-meaning but ill-informed doctors who haven't heard that soy actually reduces breast cancer mortality. It does. And so it's a plant-based diet plus soy seems to be a good idea.
Okay, thank you. And just 2 more, if that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, great. Being on an already mostly plant-based, low cholesterol way of eating, do you have any suggestions to lower borderline cholesterol? That is probably familial.
That is probably
familial, I guess, running in.
Oh, I see. Okay. It might be. For maybe 1 in 10 people, genes are what's driving your cholesterol up. But I noticed in your question, you said you're mostly plant-based. A patient comes to see me. The patient has a cough. And I say, well, you're smoking a pack a day. If you stop smoking it, you might cough less. And so they come back a month later and they say, well, I did pretty much everything you told me, but I'm still coughing a little bit. And I say, so you quit smoking? Well, I'm just having 1 cigarette a day after breakfast. That's it. Say, well, stop that one. They come back a month later and their cough is miraculously gone. If you're causing something that just irritates you a little bit, it's just whatever it is not going to go away. Cholesterol for many people is like that. If you're having little bits of animal fat, it causes your body to make cholesterol. And if you have the cholesterol itself, which is in eggs and meat and dairy, your cholesterol level is not going to go low. So do this as an experiment. For the next 8 weeks is a good amount of time. No animal products at all, none, 0. No cheating, no butter on your potato. And keep oils low, as I've been describing through this program. Then get your cholesterol tested. If it has not budged at all, then it's genetic. If it has budged, then it's something that is within your control. And the number that you want to look at is your LDL cholesterol, low density lipoprotein, LDL cholesterol. You want it below 100. and it's going to budge for 90% of people who do this change.
Thank you. And finally, are medical schools making an effort to have more classes on nutrition, noting that it's so important to start somewhere?
Baby steps are happening in that direction. And I got to tell you, the biggest push for it is from the medical students themselves. They are exploring diet changes. Many of them are vegan already themselves. They want to learn about how to apply this and how to do it smartly. So we need much more of this, but I would encourage people not to wait for the world of medicine to change. Now is the time for us to explore it on our own. And that's why I write books and why lots of other great people like Dean Ornish and Michael Greger and Caldwell Esselstyn and Drina and so many other people and Lindsay Nixon write the great books that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Just a huge thank you. It's been an honor to have you here tonight. And I know that everybody got a lot out of this talk. I really appreciate your time. I know it's 9 o'clock there. And we're getting lots of thank yous in the chat box here. It's an honor, Dr. Barnard. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. And I hope you'll come join us. We're at pcrm.org. Lots of information, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Bye for now. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Bye.